Welcome to Life Stories. What if the most brilliant mind in the room was the one wiping down your table? What if the person everyone overlooked was the only one truly watching? This isn't a story about luck. It's about quiet genius, buried potential, and the brutal truth of being underestimated. It's about a woman in a faded uniform who sat across from a powerful CEO and dismantled more than just his game. What started as a joke in a luxury boardroom turned into a battle of pride, purpose, and redemption that neither of them saw coming. Stay with us, because by the time this story ends, you might just rethink who belongs at the table and who's already rewriting the rules. Let's begin. The laughter didn't match the lighting. Under a chandelier the size of a small car, the 50th floor lounge of Valoratech pulsed with smug energy. Crystal glasses, pressed suits, and the gentle hum of billion-dollar egos congratulating themselves. Ryan Caldwell, the CEO himself, stood at the center like a conductor before a particularly tone-deaf orchestra, swirling bourbon in a low-ball glass. Behind him, a walnut chessboard gleamed under track lighting, its carved ivory and obsidian pieces lined up for spectacle, not strategy. "Come on," he smirked, nodding toward the woman near the column. "She's just the janitor. Let her play. Might as well give us a little entertainment." The joke landed like he wanted. Sharp, effortless, and perfectly engineered to elicit chuckles. Someone from HR laughed too hard. A VP mouthed, "Savage," over the rim of her wineglass. But near the marble column, half shrouded by her cleaning cart, Jade Carter didn't move. Her black uniform was pressed but faded. Her name tag hung crooked, her gloves poked out of one pocket like she'd been interrupted mid-shift. And her eyes, those flat, still eyes, did not blink. No one in the room knew that 15 years earlier, Jade had made headlines as the Bishop Whisperer of the Bronx, a chess prodigy who danced through junior circuits like she was pulling strings on the board instead of pushing pawns. They didn't know about her father's fall from a scaffold or her mother's dialysis bills or how her scholarship slipped away like rooks in retreat. They didn't know because people like them never looked closely enough to see. She said nothing. She just walked toward the board, her cart rolling behind her with the slow rhythm of someone who didn't ask for permission anymore. She stood across from Ryan, studied the setup, and finally spoke, "I'll take black." Ryan raised an eyebrow. Feeling bold? Jade didn't answer. She reset the board, her fingers moving with quiet familiarity, every motion smooth, not for show, but from muscle memory. The room grew amused, then intrigued, then silent. He opened with a flashy king's gambit, clearly proud of remembering the move from some Ivy League mixer. She met it with a solid defense, countering not just his plays but his rhythm. At move 7, he hesitated. By move 12, his smile faltered. At move 19, she pinned his king so precisely the entire lounge felt like it tilted on its axis. "Checkmate," she said, standing. She didn't wait for applause. She simply added, "Thank you for the game, Mr. Caldwell," and pushed her cart toward the elevator, disappearing behind the brass doors like a shadow that had decided, for once, to step into the light. Ryan stood frozen, bourbon untouched, mouth slightly parted. The others didn't know whether to laugh or look away. He barely heard them leave. Hours later, he was still at the board, staring at the final position like it had cursed him. That night, alone in his penthouse of steel and glass, he did something he hadn't done in years. He searched. Jade Carter. Dozens of results. None of them her. No articles, no records, no LinkedIn profiles that matched her face. It was like she'd never existed on any official registry of chess greatness. But he knew what he saw. That level of control didn't come from luck or pride. It came from pain and precision. By 3:12 a.m., he found a grainy photo buried in a 2009 tournament archive. South Bronx Youth Invitational. A young girl, braided hair, crouched beside a board mid-match. The name under the photo, J. Carter. That was all. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he skipped his investor briefings, told his assistant to reschedule everything, and took the service elevator for the first time in 10 years. Down in the concrete belly of the building, it smelled like floor wax and forgotten dreams. He passed a janitor who paused mid-mop and asked cautiously, "You lost something, sir?" "I'm looking for Jade Carter. She's off the schedule. 2 days." There was no address, No emergency contact, just a badge number and a shift log. And for the first time since building an empire out of algorithmic predictions and corporate power plays, Ryan Caldwell felt the chill of uncertainty. Not about a stock price, about a person. About a woman who had made him question the narrative he had always believed, that talent, like truth, would always rise. 2 nights later, just before midnight, he left the board set up again, white pieces toward his side this time. When she entered, pushing her cart with the same calm expression, she didn't speak. Neither did he. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," he said finally. "You didn't," she replied. "You asked for a game. I gave you one." He looked at her. "Play again, not for show, just for me." She hesitated, then sat, pulled black pieces toward her, glanced at the board. "If you open with that same smug little Scandinavian defense, I'm flipping the board." He smiled despite himself. They played. And this time, she didn't destroy him. She danced with him, held the tempo, let him struggle, let him see. And when the game ended in a quiet draw, she stood to leave, but he stopped her. "Where did you learn that kind of discipline?" She paused. "Easy. The rest of my life was chaos." As she pushed her cart away, he called out, "Jade." She looked over her shoulder. "I'd like to play again." She gave the smallest nod. "Then leave the board set." And just like that, she was gone. But this time, he wasn't left broken. He was left awake. Have you ever judged someone before knowing their story? What would you do if the person the world overlooked turned out to be the one who saw you the clearest? Because when the elevator doors closed behind Jade Carter, something cracked in Ryan Caldwell. And the game was only just beginning. Jade didn't speak for the first 3 games. Each night, after the building hushed into silence and the boardroom emptied of suits and sycophants, she appeared with her cart, wiped down the glass table, and sat across from Ryan. No greetings, no small talk. Just the steady slide of wood on wood, moves exchanged in a hush so reverent it felt like confession. He tried to read her face, her play, her silences. But Jade Carter was a locked file in a room without windows. By the 4th night, something shifted. She offered him a draw in a position she could have pressed further. When he raised an eyebrow, she simply said, "You're improving." Slowly. It was the first time she acknowledged him. And for a man used to curated praise and performative respect, her quiet nod felt more real than any award he'd ever won. Still, the air outside their games began to thicken. Rumors stirred like dust in the Valoratech hallways. "He's mentoring a janitor," someone whispered near the break room. "Maybe she's blackmailing him," another offered. Elevators went silent when Jade stepped in. Eyes followed her, but not with curiosity, with calculation. She pretended not to notice. She scrubbed harder, walked faster, smiled less. Then came the note, folded into her locker, no signature. 3 words, printed in jagged block letters, "Know your place." She read it, once, then again. She didn't cry, didn't rip it. She folded it neatly and tucked it into her back pocket like a receipt from a place she never wanted to return to. That night, when she walked into the executive lounge, she didn't sit. She didn't even look at the board. She just gathered her supplies in silence. "You're leaving early," Ryan said from the shadows. "I've got other floors to mop," she said, reaching for her gloves. He leaned forward, voice low. "You're upset." "No," she lied. "Jade, I don't need a babysitter, Mr. Caldwell." Her voice snapped like a cold wire. "Whatever this is, it's turning into a spectacle. For them, for you, for the ones who think I'm being fed some Cinderella fantasy. You can lose a game and still be CEO. I lose once, and I become the story they always expected. The mistake, the joke." He was quiet for a beat, then nodded. "Do you want me to stop coming?" "That's not the point." "Then what is?" She hesitated. The fight in her face dulled but didn't die. "You grew up in rooms that listened to you before you even opened your mouth. I grew up learning to stay quiet so people didn't decide who I was for me. And now they've noticed me, and not for the right reasons." He didn't argue, just said, "Understood." The next night, she found a single move made on the board. No note, just a quiet offering. E4. She responded. No words, no glances, just a counter. And that became the new rhythm. Silent games played through the ghost of their presence. Each night, he made one move. Each night, she answered. A strange, wordless intimacy bloomed between queen sacrifices and knight pins, more honest than most conversations they'd had aloud. But the world didn't wait. Jade was called into HR. The woman in the beige blazer didn't blink once. "There have been questions," she said with a plastic smile, "concerns about professional boundaries." "I clean floors," Jade said calmly, "and sometimes after hours I play chess." "Yes," the woman replied, "with the CEO. No money, no meetings, just chess." "Still," the woman continued, "you must understand how it appears." Jade tilted her head. "Appearance is a luxury people like you get to manage. I deal in reality." The woman's smile thinned. "This isn't disciplinary. Then I've got work to do." Jade walked out. That night, the board held a new move. Bold. Risky. A queen's gambit declined. She responded with a grin. This time, she left a note. "Nice try, but your diagonal was exposed 3 moves ago." 3 days later, Ryan called an emergency board meeting. They expected quarterly pivots and product demos. Instead, he handed them a 1-page memo titled Valoratech Youth STEM Chess Program South Bronx Pilot. One of them scoffed. "You want to allocate company resources to chess?" Ryan didn't flinch. "We've spent millions marketing our impact. Maybe it's time we actually made some." Another director frowned. "Given the rumors about your extracurricular mentorship, is this wise?" He looked them dead in the eye. "Talent doesn't always wear a lanyard. Sometimes it pushes a mop." The motion passed. Narrowly. 3 evenings later, Jade was volunteering at the rec center, guiding a circle of wide-eyed kids through endgame tactics, when a woman in a tailored green suit showed up with a clipboard and an envelope. "We'd like to fund your program," she said. "Boards, books, transport, no strings attached." Jade didn't answer right away, just asked, "Does this have anything to do with the man who always plays white?" The woman only smiled. That night, Jade entered the Valoratech lounge and found Ryan already standing by the board, not seated. Not confident, waiting. She moved a pawn. He blinked. "So, you're starting the game tonight? I've been letting you lead long enough." He tried to smile, but she cut in. "I know about the donation." He opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. "Don't lie to me, and don't apologize." "I wasn't going to. I didn't want to insult your pride." "It's not pride," she said, eyes on the board. "It's proof." "Proof of what?" "That I can still change the board, without your name on the box." Ryan studied her, then said, "Let's play. 5 mornings a week. Equal ground. No perks, just the work." She hesitated. Then, "If I win the tournament, you stop treating me like a puzzle." "And if I win," Jade smirked, "then maybe you'll finally understand why it's not enough to win." Would you risk being misunderstood to prove something only you can see? What happens when the people you've inspired start watching to see whether you believe in yourself? As the pieces moved again, something else began shifting, and this time it wouldn't stay off the record. Stay tuned for what happens when the game reaches the public eye. The tournament hall smelled of coffee, nerves, and the weight of too many expectations packed into a carpeted ballroom. Jade Carter stood just inside the entrance, holding her badge like it might detonate if she breathed too hard. Her name was printed in bold, but it still didn't feel real. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not in a place where people wore tailored blazers with monogrammed cuffs and discussed opening lines like they were family heirlooms. She wore a navy blouse from a clearance rack, sneakers she'd scrubbed until the soles turned gray, and the quiet resilience of someone who had spent a decade being looked through. Ryan Caldwell didn't approach her. He knew better now. He nodded once from across the room, not as a CEO, not as her benefactor, but as a player. As someone who had lost and learned. She nodded back. That was all they needed. Her first match was against a seasoned club player from New Jersey who called her darlin' and smirked through the handshake. He was in checkmate in 27 moves. The second opponent, a hyper-fast teen prodigy from Brooklyn, played like lightning. Jade responded like gravity. Unyielding. Measured. She didn't chase the clock. She let it chase her. She won on time. But the whispers grew louder. "That's the janitor, right? She's got backing. This is all PR. She's not self-made. It's a story." They didn't know that stories like hers weren't written. They were carved from silence and shame and sacrifice. Jade had learned long ago not to argue with whispers. She just played. At the end of day one, she was undefeated. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her hotel bed felt too soft, like it was trying to convince her she belonged here. She stared at the ceiling until the city outside faded into blue, then rose with the dawn and walked the hallway like a ghost, memorizing every echo. By the semifinal round, the cameras had arrived. Ryan was already seated at his board, about to face a Latvian master with eyes like razors. Jade sat down beside him. Her opponent wore a gray suit so sharp it might have been starched with ambition. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just moved a knight like he expected her to flinch. She didn't. She played like someone with nothing to prove and everything to protect. Her pieces moved with quiet intent, not flash. She offered no theatrics, no dramatic sacrifices, just unrelenting accuracy. By move 43, the man's composure cracked. He tipped his king. She stood, didn't bow, didn't gloat, just breathed. From the other board, Ryan had lost his match, but he was already watching her. His grin split across his face as he clapped, once, then again, until the whole hall followed. He clapped like a stranger, like someone who had watched a force of nature and didn't want to contain it. Reporters swarmed. Officials handed her a crystal plaque, her name etched in perfect lines. But none of it mattered. Not really. Not as much as the sound of hands coming together for someone who once wasn't worth a glance. That night, a banquet was held in a room lit too brightly and filled with people who suddenly remembered her name. She stood by the wall, ginger ale untouched in her hand, and stared at the trophy like it might turn to dust if she blinked. Ryan found her near the exit, already halfway gone. "You okay?" he asked. "I've never been in a room with this much lobster and this many fake smiles." "You changed the board," she exhaled slowly. "Then why do I still feel like I'm just a different kind of pawn?" Before he could answer, a political figure approached, polished, poised, smiling too wide. "Miss Carter," he said warmly, "your story has moved the state. We'd love to partner, perhaps an educational tour. Bring your inspiration to schools, maybe a press campaign." Jade didn't smile. "You want to put me on a bus so kids can clap for how lucky I got?" "Not at all," he said. "You're exceptional." "I've always been exceptional," she replied. "You just didn't notice until now." He left quickly. Ryan stepped closer. "You didn't have to burn him." "I didn't," she said. "I lit the truth. Let it burn on its own." She looked up. "Can we leave now?" They walked out the service entrance and into the cold night, where the city didn't care who won. The wind felt cleaner out there, honest. They walked to the river where lights danced on the water like secrets. "You did it," he said. "No, we did it." "No," he corrected. "You did." She looked at him, eyes darker than the river. "What now?" He hesitated. "I want you to run the youth initiative, full-time, your own team, your vision." "Is this another favor?" "No. This is a repayment for every move you made that made me better, for every kid who saw you and believed." She looked away. "I don't want a statue. You'll get no cameras, no press, just the work." She nodded. "On one condition, I set the rules." "Deal." Weeks passed, then months. Jade's name was etched on more than a trophy. It was on a program, a team, a movement. The kids came, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from places people tried to forget. She didn't promise them miracles. She gave them boards and time and silence to grow. And Ryan, he came back each week, no longer trying to lead, just trying to learn. One night, long after the kids had gone home, he handed her a small box. She opened it. Inside was a carved black queen, polished walnut that the base engraved with 5 words. "Every move you made mattered." She didn't cry. She never did. But her fingers curled around it like it was something holy. "I'm not used to keepsakes," she whispered. "You should be," he said. "You're someone worth remembering." They stood in the gym, surrounded by folding tables and forgotten score sheets. The world outside kept moving. The lights buzzed. The air was still. But something had changed. In her, in him, in the kids. In the way one pawn, if brave enough, could reach the other side and become anything. And that night, alone in her apartment, Jade placed the queen next to an old pawn on her shelf. 2 pieces. 1 journey. The memory of every game played not for glory, but for the right to finally be seen. How did this story make you feel? What part of Jade's journey resonated most with you? If you love this story, drop 100 in the comments to let us know. Tell us which country you're watching from. Share this story with a friend who believes in second chances. And thank you for watching Life Stories.